Mustafa Akinci for all the wrong reasons, for getting on for 30 years. I first met him with Lelos Dimitriadis when he was the mayor of Nicosia. That tells you how long ago that was. When Lelos and Mustafa were working together to sort out the drains while everybody else was being bloody minded. It was understood by the mayor of the northern half of the city and the mayor of the whole of Nicosia that whatever else happened, the sewage had to keep flowing. And it was a tribute to both of those men that they were able to achieve quietly, privately, and in some cases secretly, what they achieved. And that fills me with something that President Anastasiadis is dealing with a man that is reasonable and can be talked to, has an affection for all of Cyprus in the way that we do, and hopes that perhaps a settlement that can be reached. But, of course, we all know that that settlement will only be reached if and when Turkey deems it to be desirable, and that will only happen if and when the United States, which may not be a guarantor power but has very considerable influence, and the United Kingdom, as another guarantor power, decides that more has to be done. And frankly, given all the troubles in the world, and particularly the troubles in the Middle East, and the volatile nature of everything that is happening in the Middle East, the fact that there is no settlement in Cyprus, no fair settlement in Cyprus, is a luxury that we cannot, in the interests not only of humanity but also of security, afford. So your friends in this House of Commons, on both sides of the House of Commons, because we have never ever considered this to be a party political issue for us, will continue to work as hard as we possibly can to seek to bring about the resolution that we all want to see and that we know and believe to be fair. And I can only reiterate what I've said now far too many times, sadly, which is that we're in this with you for as long as it takes. Thank you.
It's very kind of you. I don't think I'm listed as a speaker, but thank you very much. And can I say congratulations to you on your election as President of the Federation. Fantastic. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's lovely to be back. And I want to say thank you to all of the Cypriots in Enfield who helped me to get elected on May the 7th this year and to be back. I know what it's like to both win and lose, and I think most of us know which we prefer, but they're both learning experiences, shall we say. I'm really pleased to be able to be here for the first time now in some 5 years to address this gathering. And I think most people know that in Enfield it is the borough with the largest number of both Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots in this country. So I often think we have something of a mini Cyprus in Enfield. And I know that all of the people of Cypriot origin who live in Enfield are very much aware of what's happening in Cyprus and the more positive atmosphere, and indeed maybe a little bit more than positive now. Really, there is a sense of optimism about what's happening there, the moves President Anastasiadis has made and the moves of Mr. Akinci. And people are very aware of it and they are talking about it. We know 41 years is a very long time, and the last thing we want to see is anybody disappointed again, because this is the next best opportunity. good opportunities that really give a strong possibility of a just and viable settlement, a peaceful settlement, a settlement that we've all now long been signed up to, a single citizenship, a sovereign Cyprus, one united country, bizonal, bicommunal, federal settlement, along the lines of the UN resolutions and the high-level agreement. That is what has long been in our minds and on our lips. And it looks like there's strong possibilities of moving forward. It's not for us to say, it is for Cypriots to work this out, and for us to support, to facilitate, to do everything we can to play our role, and a special role as a guarantor power. That still holds true. And I am pleased to be back here and to be able to say to you, I will do everything I can, however great or little that might be, that I will do everything I can to facilitate that, to lend my support to that, to raise my voice for that just and viable settlement. And it would be fantastic to see this happen, to see it happen sooner rather than later, and I would be so happy to be part of Parliament here in the UK when that happens. I went to the Cypriot Wine Festival a couple of weeks ago. Fantastic event, what's not to like? Good food, good company, good wine, and a business expo as well. It was a really fabulous event. I know many of you were there. I saw you there. But I did visit the stand of the missing persons, and it does kind of, temper in a way. It doesn't stop you feeling optimistic, but it does remind you that there is still a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and that doesn't go away. And only a just and viable and peaceful settlement will really move things forward. We need to know, the relatives need to know, the friends, the family, what happened to their missing loved ones. But we need that settlement. And I am positive and, yes, a little bit optimistic. And I hope that I will be able to say to all of my Cypriot constituents, both Greek and Turkish Cypriot, this is now happening. We need to stand by, watch carefully, and hope that that's where we're going in the very, very near future. Thank you very much.
So Roger needs to head off, so thank you for your contribution.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Sir Alan.
He always leaves when I get up to speak. He's a big mate of mine, actually.
To tell you something?
There's a few things that I want to get out of the way very early on, which is to thank both the High Commissioner and the Ambassador for here today. In the international scene, I go to Paris a lot, I do Strasbourg, all members of Parliament in this country are actually invited to meet various ambassadors and high commissioners. But rarely do you get people as committed to these two who come here frequently and commit themselves to their own community. And I think it's a treasure trove that you've got there in the two ambassadors, and I think you should consider yourself very lucky. Not all ambassadors and not all high commissioners are like that. And as I say, all credit to them for doing that. Also, Christos, my thanks to you and congratulations, because unlike one or two others, I remember going to your home a lot many, many years ago, and there was three of you, George, Gregory and you, and you used to be running around you're causing mayhem all the time. So now to come here all those many years later and see you leading the British Federation of Cypriot, it's quite remarkable, really. So thanks very much for hanging in that respect. But I want to also pay tribute to our own parliamentary ambassador, because there's somebody in this room that, without the work that he put in, would be a sorry bunch indeed. I mean, Tom Cox was here a lot of years. One of the main reasons that I think it's good to have the meeting here now is because members of Parliament, and the new intake and the old, you don't know exactly everything that's going on at the present time in Cyprus. We know a lot because we talk to politicians, obviously in Strasbourg and Paris and in London, and we talk to ministers and so on and so forth. But, you know, we aren't getting it from the community, and that's very, very important to us. I pay tribute also to our Turkish Cypriot colleague for his bravery in the face of, you know, the most unbelievable odds in doing what he did do. And please, patriotic as you are, congratulations, thank you very much for all. I would like to listen to you. So I'm going to make a few more minutes and then leave it off while the questions come back. What I can tell you from the parliamentary side is that we are forced to work together across the political divide in this place. And Teresa is there on every occasion. And believe me, it's not easy. I used to be a minister, and it wasn't easy. You were told not to go on platforms, not to do this, that, and the other. She's a Secretary of State, and she's never flinched. She's turned up to every occasion. She does it after elections, which is the most important thing of all. She's absolutely, totally committed to the cause, and I'm grateful that whenever you come into a room, she's there. Thank God, thank God for that. But sometimes, you know, you get people from the other side on issues that cause you a bit of a problem. I mean, like her, I'm very pro-European, and sometimes you get people who aren't. And sometimes they're your friends in this place, and it gets a bit of an upset. But let's just go back to the issue. Things are changing in Cyprus at the moment, and they're doing it because of brave people in the north, which is one. Also because of the political instability in Turkey itself, and also things that are happening in places like Kurdistan and all the rest of it, and also what's happening in the Mediterranean, which is oil and gas. There's suddenly a realisation that the island isn't just a watchtower of Europe, which it's been for centuries, but it's much more than that. It's probably the lifeblood for the next 50 to 70 years of liquefied gas in Europe. And it's the biggest oil find and gas find in the whole of Europe. You know, Russia isn't in Europe, it's outside of the equation. Norway is not in Europe, it's in Europe, the European country, the continent, but it's not in the European Union. So we have a producer which is ready to give birth to this new liquid asset, which hopefully will come through soon and will solve the problems in the Middle East, financial problems. I have no doubt at all about that. As long as it's managed correctly and for the good of the people, I think it will be. I think there's some honest and decent people who will try to deliver that. But we're still left with a problem which we have to put up. 41 years is a disgrace. It's an absolute thorough disgrace that here we are gathered together talking about other international events, whether they be in Kuwait, or they're in Iraq, or they're in Iran, or they're in Kurdistan, or in the north of Turkey, or Syria, and all the rest of it. In the same breath, we don't actually recall the largest barrier to peace and stability and democracy in the whole of Europe has separated Cyprus. We have to recognise that until that's done, until that's cured, until that's sorted out, there can be no real vision of freedom and democracy in Europe, let alone Cyprus. We've just lost a great colleague in this place, two colleagues, Jimmy Hood and Jim Sheridan. And Jim Sheridan especially worked with me in the Council of Europe, as Roger is on, Tom was on for many years. And we've actually managed to turn the corner there. But undoubtedly, the Council of Europe was the main thrust platform which insisted and got through by the government, the British government predominantly, acceptance of Cyprus into the European Union. It is still the only force of government that's still recognised through the Council of Ministers time and time and time again, cases involving Cyprus. The various Luzidiu case and a whole series of others in the Council of Europe area, only part and parcel of many other cases which have gone on since then. But the real case for recognition for the payment of monies owed in the north, which is still outstanding, a case for returning the troops back to the mainland, to address the whole issue of the missing people, which there can be no solution to Cyprus unless you solve that problem. And people turn around and say, well, you know, it's a long time ago now. It isn't actually. It's 41 years. We're not talking about centuries, but we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of people. The whereabouts is not known. But those who have been discovered, those who have been identified, I visited the laboratories in Cyprus, and I've seen all the remains that are there. And 97% of them all died in the same way, with a shot in the back of the head. All of that's still got to be investigated too, because it's actually cleansing. Whoever did that committed cleansing. Until we have a free world which examines what happened there and tell the relatives of the people exactly what occurred, there can be no peace, no stability. Nelson Mandela said that. He said we have to have committees in Cyprus, open in South Africa, open and honest, examining exactly what happened. And then what do? You tell people what occurred. And that is part of the healing process. Unless we do that in Cyprus, there can't be a complete healing. So it'll come back and back and back, and the sooner we get it done, the actual better. But there's much more to do yet. There's lots of questions. And Christos, it's not just about property, it's about homes. Because lots of the people I meet who, you know, have been displaced and live in Britain, Canada, south part of Cyprus or whatever, they're excluded from their homes, not just the property. The problem is that politicians around and outside of Cyprus think it's just about money and compensation. It has nothing to do with that. It's about heritage in their homes. That's the reality. It's about their loved ones. Whole history of a nation, a very proud nation. Roger said it a bit earlier, Roger and I are very Hellenic in our approach to life. There's no doubt about that. And our sympathies go to Cyprus at the present time. You know, I was brought up that you don't let your family down. And you know, but family members frequently let you down. They get in trouble. You don't walk away from family members when they're in trouble. You help them. You help them. You help them get, and sometimes they're not very helpful themselves. They don't help themselves. They get in more and more trouble. But that's not an excuse for not doing any help for them and supporting them. And that's what we've got to do at the present time. Because there are people out there, long before this recent instance where Greece got in trouble, who day after day, week after week were anti-Hellenic, whether it be in the press, the media, the universities, time and time and time again. I used to write the BBC all the time, the Times, the Telegraph, the Daily Mail, who were anti-Hellenic just for the case. That was all about Greece. Things like, beware Greeks bearing gifts, anti-Greek things against Turkey, all the rest. It was a commonplace thing. Now many of them got the excuse to do it. We have to stop it. We have to stop it. The only right way to do it is to help our family who are in trouble. And we've got to do that in any way we can, because they are a member of our family. That's reality. I want them to remain in you, but I don't want them to leave you. I don't want anybody to leave you. I want them all to stay, and I think it's up to us to find a way, a solution, to help them to get that. The sooner we can get that, the better. So just to conclude, really, I just want to say that I've come here today principally because I want to hear from the community about their ideas about what's happening in Cyprus, because we're not in the front line here. We're really not at all. Just had a general election, which has taken about 9 months of our lives, and it really has done that. I mean, only about 2 months of it was actually on the knocker, getting people out to vote. But it was much longer before that, and the various policies that we're doing and all the rest of it. And because of that, we're all in trouble, including the government, by the way. We're all in trouble at the present time. But what I say to you, please, please, please put questions to us that we can either answer honestly, or go away and find out and come back and give you some answers sometime later. So all I can do is assure you what Teresa, what Roger, what Joan, and what I am saying. We will not stand idly by. We will do nothing to help you. We will do whatever we can. We won't make false promises. We will go into this in any way we can. In Europe, we're already doing stuff. The missing persons report, which has been done in Cyprus, is now going to be further examined. It's going to be further done on a national basis. There's a new committee being formed also in the Council with the European Parliament, which is about frozen conflicts in the European area. We are getting on with that, and we will continue to do whatever we can until such time as Cyprus is free and we're celebrating with it. All right?
Thank you to I think a number of MPs will be dropping in over the course of the evening, but I would ask either of the mayors if they want to make a Now, as Alan said, we'll open it up to the floor, but I'd like to kick off.
Excellencies, distinguished friends of Cyprus, allow me first to thank the Federation, Christos and all the rest of the group that they made this possible for us. Myself, Glafkos Kariolou, an elected mayor from the town of Kyrenia in Cyprus, and Mr. Neoptolemus Kotsabas, who is the mayor of Lapithos, and we are representing the 9 refugee municipalities. And thank you, Mr. Min, for asking and putting and raising the question about the missing persons and the meaning behind the word home, which is very important for us. But please allow me first to welcome my compatriot Koray. I didn't know Mr. Koray before. I heard on the news that there was a couple in Famagusta, in occupied Famagusta, putting up the flag of my country. And these these compatriots, they, in the middle of grey wolves and in the middle of the Turkish occupation army, they insisted to fly the flag of my country, the Cyprus flag. So now it gives me the chance to explain to all of you why does an elected mayor from the occupied town of Kyrenia breaks the rule and enters the occupied area? Why? Because a compatriot needed my presence in the court in Famagusta when he was under trial. Why? Because he was holding the flag of the Republic of Cyprus, a full member of the European Union. So I went there, inside the court, and I supported in any possible way I could. And they attacked him and his wife, the Grey Wolves. And the police there, the police of the occupation regime, protected him and us from the attacking Grey Wolves. And I am very thankful to Mr. David Eftivoulou, who made it possible for this couple to be with us today. And you can actually hear a few words from Koray, that he speaks, unfortunately, not so fluent English, but he can express himself. So I come back to the question of the missing persons and the question put by Mr. Alan Mill. What is actually happening on the ground? And I can explain to you what is actually happening now. After 41 years, we are trying to find missing persons. However, after 41 years, it's very difficult to trace eyewitnesses, people that they have actually buried our missing. We have about 1,400 missing people. Only 400 were found. 1,000 are still unaccounted for. Why? 41 years after what happened in Cyprus, after the Turkish invasion, and yet approximately 1.5 months ago, the CMP is the Committee for the Missing Persons, found 2 very old people that they have actually buried 2 of our missing ones near Belabais. So a team went there to Belabais. They were pinpointed at an acacia tree where they were buried. And the actual team of archaeologists, they started digging the place. And suddenly the Turkish army came there and stopped them. They, of course, had the permission, in inverted commas, from the regime. But the regime is not ruling. It is the Turkish army which is ruling. And this is not the only example that we can see, that now it's becoming crystal clear. On one side is the people of Cyprus, and on the other side is Turkey. So this is why in Cyprus we do not use anymore the bizonal, bicommunal federation. This term is illegal. Why? First of all, we are not 2 communities in Cyprus, we are 5 communities in Cyprus. Above all, the interpretation given by the occupation force is an ethnically cleansed north and an ethnically cleansed south. Koray insisted of having a united Cyprus, and he was rising up the flag of Cyprus. Inside the courtroom that I was personally present, the judge herself, she actually ordered one of the grey wolves out of the courtroom when he forgot his iPhone open and he tried inside. She allowed 23 of us to enter the courtroom. She was a Cypriot judge, not a Turkish Cypriot or Greek Cypriot. She was a Cypriot judge. And they were, thank God, acquitted. So there are many examples showing that Great Britain, who is a guarantor power, must stand a little bit more effective and convince, especially on the missing persons issue, their NATO allies. I know there is a problem with the politicians. However, please try to communicate this to the NATO part of the British forces, either in Cyprus or the high command of NATO. They cooperate with the Turkish generals. They have friends there. And the only way to get through these 25 or 26 so-called military zones and open these military zones before we lose all these elderly eyewitnesses that they are waiting to pinpoint and show us where they buried our missing ones. They should open these so-called military zones and allow the CMP to enter these military zones and to start digging yesterday. Not today, yesterday. We are losing these people. They are old people, 70, 80, 90 years old, eyewitnesses that they can pinpoint where they were buried. We are losing them gradually, and we will not have any evidence as regards where these people are buried. Number 2, after 41 years, the Turkish army should open their registers and their logbooks and their records. Inside their records, we are talking about probably one of the biggest armies in NATO, in numbers at least. They have over 1 million people in arms. They are very well organized and methodical. They have records. They have to open their records of 1974 and tell us how, when, where. They know. And the only way, it seems, also, I must reveal to you that there is not one single Turkey. Unfortunately, we are facing a nation that is 2 or 3 or even sometimes 4 different Turkeys. The military Turkey, the political Turkey, and other things. Orders are given by the political leadership of Turkey and not obeyed by the military occupation force in Cyprus. For example, Mr. Akinci gave an order to allow the fire brigades from Kyrenia to enter and extinguish the fire in Famagusta. The military ordered no. So nobody was allowed to enter into Famagusta to extinguish the fire because the Turkish military commanders ordered no. So there is a way that we can get assistance and help from Great Britain as a guarantor power through their NATO sources, through the military command, to the military attachés, probably in Ankara. Have the military attachés slowly approaching the Turkish generals and convincing them that after 41 years they have no benefit and no reason to hide this information. It is very, very crucial and very important for us. And also the records. They have to open the records. As a Kyrenian and as a refugee myself, as an elected mayor, I would like to say that confidence-building measures are there. It's very simple and very complicated. I was mentioning before that one very simple confidence-building measure is just a switch to switch off the flag on the mountain, which is, it lights during the night and telling us that Turkish occupation is still there. And it is just a switch and saving energy, and yet we don't see it yet. So we are very patient with Mr. Akinci. We have also hopes that Mr. Akinci will be able to do it. However, he will not be able to deal with the Turkey that I was talking about unless he has assistance from our major guarantor nowadays, which is Great Britain. I thank you very much for listening to me, and now I would like to give a small present to Mr. Aranli, since he's Thank you. I will be ready to answer to any question that.
I'm just pleased he's a member of the Labour Party.
Since you mentioned home, this is home. Thank you very much.
So now let's open it up to questions or comments from the floor. We'll take a couple at a time and then.
Thank you. First, may I say that when I hear a wonderful Labour MP praising the Secretary of State, who happens to be Conservative, there's a wonderful future awaiting us all. And also thanks to you, because you have all been a sturdy supporter of Cyprus for many, many years, as well as Teresa. My question is this. With regards to the missing, we hear that there are still 1,000 people missing. And if we relate that number to the population, it would be the equivalent of the UK missing, at this moment, 100,000 people. That's in regard to what the population of Cyprus was at the time. I see it as somewhat barbaric for any country to use corpses as a bargaining tool. And I'm really wondering, from your point of view as an MP, how else could Turkey be encouraged to do this one thing, release where these bodies are to be found? Thank you.
Let's take the second one then.
The term guarantor, it was mentioned, Alan, several times tonight. The Treaty of Guarantee places an obligation to each of the guarantor powers to do everything they can and take every measure necessary, alone and in consultation with the others, to restore the integrity and sovereignty of the Republic of Cyprus, which is now being violated by the Turkish Army of Occupation. And therefore, it should be one of the top issues of the Foreign Office agenda. And we should demand that it is so. Now, we haven't, watching and reading the answer, there is a long time since a debate on Cyprus has taken place. I was going to ask the rest of the members of parliament, but now, Alan, the burden falls on you. Will you be willing, in consultation with the others, to seek such a debate in the near future? That's my question, and I have a comment on the missing people. That, when I did my research in writing the book on the case, I discovered a disturbing truth. When they did the investigation on the missing in Serbia, the United States insisted that every evidence should be maintained and those responsible should be brought to justice. And they did so. In the case of Cyprus, that term does not exist. All the evidence are destroyed. They are destroyed so that there is no case in the future. And this is the sad and disturbing reality regarding the missing.
I'll take the second question first. On the first point, which is instigating debate, there's one just before the last general election, just a few months ago, and it was a private members' debate which lasted about an hour and a half. And I will have words with colleagues, and I know Mrs. Osamo is here, probably turning up very soon. I know she and others, and Joan Ryan and others, would happily join in. And the reason I point to them is because I say this year, these people have an awful lot of Cypriots in their constituency, and they have an awful lot of people who are missing involved in this. So they have a right to be at the forefront of debates that last only up to an hour and a half. They're right at the forefront, and they represent people who've lost people. And we have to give them, full right to be in that debate. But I'll instigate this talk soon. I'll talk with other members, and they'll agree with that. I also am committed to the debate in the Council of Europe, and the job of rapporteur on the missing. Jim Sheridan had it. I've agreed to take that task on in January, from January, for the Council of Europe area. And the second report will be the Cypriot report after Georgia. It will do that. And also, we're instigating this Frozen Conflict Committee, which will, again, take up as one of the 5 frozen conflicts in Europe. Cyprus is one of the main ones involved in that, so we'll do that. On the second element, which is about guarantor, a colleague of mine who I worked very, very closely with, a dear friend of mine, was Robin Cook. And Robin Cook was the Secretary of State, when I said to you before, Britain was probably largely responsible for Cyprus entering the Council of Europe because there was vetoes asked for, there was all kinds of things asked for. And the person who fought all of that was a group of people. It was largely Robin Cook and John Prescott, actually. That's who were the front line with Blair. We were receiving calls from the United States of America all over the place to try and do a deal, which meant there was a veto. And we wouldn't wear that, we fought against that. And Robin took the baton forward and defeated it. In fact, I don't know whether you know it, but if you look on the Helsinki Accord, which allowed Cyprus to become full members of the European Union, it was me who signed that. They didn't realise at the time, but I was on the roster, and it was my turn on the roster. So I flew to Helsinki, and I signed it, but it was negotiated not by me at all. It was negotiated by Robin Cook. And he did a fantastic job, actually, in that. And I signed it on this day for Robin, who returned back to the UK. There was a huge Turkish frigate in the Helsinki harbour, so we never knew quite where we were going to get home. But what I can tell you on the guarantor aspect of this, and the reason I mentioned Robin Cook, is because that sort of international representation approach in politics has largely been lost in Britain since Robin's demise. We took a stance and said that our international policy should be based on human rights and the rule of law. And we did that, and we talked about the UN and the whole series. And he based the whole of Britain's international policy on that, and meeting the 0.7% GDP, all of that for the third world. And when he died, things slipped back. And I'll explain to you, if you look at Europe's policy now, overseas policy, in all the countries, whether it's France, they give you any kind of money you want, provided it's in trade. That's predominantly their role. So you get arms, you get trade generally, all the rest of it. Britain is a bit different than that. He's going up towards the 0.7, hasn't reached that yet, and tends to do it in terms of foodstuffs and all of that, but still does in the background deals for British companies and all the rest of it. Now, they're not unusual at all of these countries, who have turned the helping, the giving, the supporting into a trade, into a business, if you like, in trying to get British goods abroad. That is not the right way for international policy to progress. It's what Robin Cook actually espoused and tried to get through, and was doing a remarkable job before he decided to leave office and do another one rather than the one he was given. So what we've got to do is to go back to that situation. So guarantee isn't just saying we'll have one side of the... What has happened in Cyprus is wrong. It's fundamentally wrong. It is another country invading a sovereign nation, illegally occupying and killing people. That's what occurred. That's the basic facts about it. You can go around the houses, you can make excuses, you can do all kinds of sentences which are lowly, you can accept things happen in war, you can do all of that. But the reality is, they invaded, they killed, they took over, and they kept. And they did all of that, and then they restricted the normal population and moved them from the south. Every aspect of that is wrong. It is wrong under the United Nations terms, it is wrong under the EU terms, it is wrong under all those individual countries' terms. And until we get to a point where it's accepted that it's wrong, we have to put it right. We can't have a solution. And Britain should be saying, and you mentioned the politicians are different. It's mostly isn't politics. It's policy. It's the mandarins. It's their bosses. It's their bosses who do it. The desks, the Southeast Europe desks, and it's not just about Cyprus. This policy which occurs, Indochina, Vietnam, Haiti, other places, Srebrenica, we just had mentioned, where people killed hundreds, sometimes thousands of people just because they wanted to do it, or they need to do it, and they did it. Now it's wrong. And in answer to your query in respect to that, the only way you get resolution in a thing as big as cleansing, which this was. There's no doubt. And by the way, there's a little bit of cleansing on the other side too. Not as much, but there was. It's ethnic cleansing. The only way you get an end to the resolution of that is that A, you've got to accept it occurred, and you've got to say it was wrong, and we will do anything to put it right. I meet the Archbishop regularly. I met the chap in the Muslim community in Turkey, and I've said to them, speak up, say something. If you say something, they might not believe politicians or trust politicians or even have any regard for what politicians say, but they will for you. You say, we know where the graves are. Open the graves, occupy, get it out, get it all cleaned up, get the matter settled. Because Nelson Mandela was right. Obama is right. Kennedy was right. Jimmy Carter was right. Other people. You can't have any resolution to it and you accept it occurred. And then you say, what are we going to do about it? And the first thing you've got to do is honesty. Because I'll tell you, I've met hundreds of Cypriots that tell me about their missing relative. And every one of them said, we will never solve this problem until I know what happened. Until I know exactly what... I don't care who did it. I want to know what happened. They cling on to... Now, I did a very good report with Charles Thompson many, many years ago. We proved there was a maximum, because we couldn't find out anything, there was a maximum between 4 and 6 people alive. We did that. He was making a film, I was writing the film to get it through. We could do it. Nobody can tell me that a government department couldn't do it, or investigative civil servants couldn't do it. Of course they can. And you say you can't, the evidence has been destroyed. I was in charge for 9 years of 17 million graves in the world, the Commonwealth War Graves Association. I was in charge of it for 9 years. We had people all over 156 countries, 159,000 sites in those countries, with millions upon millions of people. We knew where everybody was. We knew where everybody... And when we find people, which we still do, my own grandfather's missing from the First World War, somewhere in the Somme. But he'll pop up, he'll come out the ground at some point, and I can tell you this, we'll find out who he was, because there's evidence there. When I just, about 3 months ago, went to Italy, because when I was in Italy, I instigated an investigation for the Commonwealth War Graves about 2 particular missing soldiers. And they found them. They found them slumped behind a wall, and they disintegrated. They were under a hedge which had grown on top. And they found them by pure accident. And we found they were them, not only by the DNA which you managed to extract from their bones, but also things like buttons, there was watches in their pockets, all of these things. So there is evidence there, despite the fact that people might say there isn't anything. There is. The only place you could probably say that was in the Second World War in Auschwitz and places like that, where people are being stripped clean, and there was only ashes in many cases to that. So there is a chance to identify all of these people, or most of these people, and somehow giving resolution to the argument and saying, right, now we'll start again. We will say this will never happen again. And we will say what this chap's done. I'm a Cypriot. I'm not Turk, I'm not Greek. I'm a Cypriot. And I'm proud of it. And we can live together. And it wasn't just a few years they lived together. It was centuries in many cases that they lived together, happily. And what transpired was, the most awful situation where outside interference was held to upstage a nation like that. But I say this, it takes a brave man or woman to tell the truth and to say, open this up. I mean, Glafkos Kariolou once told me, Alan, I'll tell you where there's a grave. We did the report. It was a grave from the 1960s. And he knew also where there was one from the 70s. And he told me both where they were, and we went there for both sides, and we tried every way imaginable to get them just to accept that that was the place where it was, and allow it to be doable. On both sides, not one side, both sides. And suddenly, from being told it was denied. You can't be like that. You have to be honest. You have to be open, because if you don't, it'll never solve itself at all.
Andrea Svärd is President of Koray.
young man over here, Tom Cox, who have been all these years keeping our problem alive in this parliament. I wanted to make a comment to John Ryan, but she had to leave, obviously. But Alan, being an old scholar on Cyprus, on the Cyprus issue, I think you should make a point to her, because something which she said, she actually said towards the end of her intervention, is that the solution will bring us to the solution of this issue with the missing people. Well, this is a wrong position, because if we have to wait for the problem to be solved until this humanitarian issue is resolved, it's the wrong attitude. Things have to be done today, as you very openly said earlier on, because this is not a bargaining chip, and it shouldn't be, on the negotiation table. So the issue with the missing people should be addressed in a different way, and I welcome any initiative which may be taken on any level, from governments, from the military, from everybody, for this particular graves, which quite a few of them are actually identified. We know where they are, but it's just the position of the Turkish army. It has been completely negative, and so we don't really have to wait for the problem to be resolved. It may take more years. We don't know. Let's hope we have a solution soon. So I will expect you to address this point with John Ryan, because it's not the correct position. Thank you very much.
I just talked to you a short while ago about being in the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. Half my family come from France. My grandfather was captured in France in the Napoleonic War. He was brought back with him by the Duke of Norfolk to work on his estate for free. He was a slave, and he came back. And the reason I have a name is because of an idiot priest. Idiot priest, a girl who came back, their daughter, she gave birth to a young child, and it was christened. And when they took the child to be christened, the priest said, "What name?" And they said, "Miel." He said, "Meal." He wrote it down. Everybody with my name in the world comes from a little village in Norfolk, and because of an idiot priest who couldn't spell. On the other side of it, which is the important factor, they're Irish, also Gaelic. They're all Irish. Now, they were also evicted from their property and their land, because English soldiers knocked on the door, and when they opened it, they said, "You're starving to death in the Great Famine. You've got to get on a boat and go to America." And they said, "We're not. We have a pig, we have 2 sheep, we have a cattle, we have milk. We don't have any problem." He said, "Out." So they took them out, they burned the house to the ground, not because they were saving their lives. They wanted the land. They wanted the land. And they put them on a boat for New York. And when they landed, they were in Middlesbrough, because they wanted coal miners in Middlesbrough. So the boat went to Middlesbrough, in the top end of England, and they went and worked in coal mines there. Now, when I became the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, I was determined somehow to engage between those Irish people who fought with the British and died bravely on their behalf, and the Irish government, because we had a bit of a dilemma between North and South Ireland. And so it took me 8 years, and in the end, I negotiated a package where the 3,500 soldiers from the British Army who were dead and buried in Northern Ireland, in Ireland, would be replaced in single graves, because they were buried in mass graves all over Ireland. And I first got to Glasnevin Cemetery, where there were 250, and I got them all dug up, repatriated in single graves, and everything. Now, many of you will remember that, because after I did that and got it all ready, the Queen went to Ireland, had a very successful journey over Ireland, and she opened that particular cemetery. But what I'm saying to you is that sometimes it takes a lot of years, and sometimes you're saying, "You've done a terrible thing there. These people were in the army, and in those days, you could either be buried whether you fell, or your body could be brought back home to Ireland." You came back to Ireland because he'd fought with the British, they put in a mass grave. So you've got to remind them that they did this and they've got mass graves. It's not easy. And then you've got to get them to agree to allow them to be dug up and re-put it. So it's a difficult job. In that instance, it took 8 years. But that's a blink. It is a blink in region. You've had 41 years of people being missing, and the only ones that you found are in boxes in the laboratories out there, all with the same injury. So, you know, when you do things like that, you've got to, if you like, think out of the box altogether and actually do another approach. But the essence of it all is a realization that you will never close an issue down like this unless you're absolutely total and open and honest. Because who did it is irrelevant. It's what happened. That's the key to it. And the sooner people can get it, the quicker we can have a resolution. And we can start to build a new nation with no animosity between both sides. They won't like what happened, but they accept it's over and they've got to get on with the line.
I saw Tom Cox and then Koray to speak after.
I think that all of us here this evening are aware of the deep gratitude that we owe to Alan Mill and the other parliamentarians who've been here this evening and those who are not able to be here, because it has been for years and years people like Alan and others who have kept the issue of Cyprus alive in this house. And Alan, many, many thanks. At the rally on Sunday, several of the speakers said that there was now a new hope because of the new leadership within the Turkish Cypriot community. I believe, and I look forward with everything in my power to see that happening. But everyone here this evening knows that it is Ankara. It is Ankara that decides the policy for the occupied area of the Republic of Cyprus. I do not believe that the United Kingdom has any great influence on Turkey. The country that does have influence is the United States of America. They are the country that really has the influence. Now, I'm aware, as Alan and many here this evening will be, that a few months ago, the Vice President of the US, Joe Biden, was in the Republic of Cyprus, making a number of speeches. Now, what has happened following Biden's visit? Are we seeing, and we know that President Obama is now coming to the end of his presidency, and the Americans have an expression, as you come to the end of your term of office, you're a lame duck president. But what is the United States of America? What are they going to do? I can remember, as Alan and many of you here this evening will, when President Clinton repeatedly said, "Oh, my great commitment is the unification of the island of Cyprus." Sadly, it didn't happen. So I would like, and possibly Alan knows or other colleagues here this evening may know, what now is the real American involvement in Cyprus, and what is their objective? Who are they actually talking to? Are they talking to the President of the Republic? Because unless the Americans get involved, as much as we want to see and work to see a settlement, I sadly don't think it will happen.
Joe might have an ongoing situation, because rumour has it that he's still one of the people who, under consideration, to retain the vice if Hillary Clinton wins. So he may retain that situation. So he will always be an influence. And actually, in a funny sort of way, with his politics on the Middle East generally, he might be better if he isn't vice president, because he'll speak out a little bit more forcefully than he has done of late. Where America is now is it's in every bar, every committee, every department you can get in Cyprus, and it's looking for oil and gas. And they're in there in a big way. You can't get a room in the Hilton now because it's full of Americans of every shape and form and service deliverer. They're all in there now. And believe me, Cyprus is going to be... Everybody's going through a crisis in Europe at the present time. But I tell you this, despite falling oil prices, which oil prices will rise. And I can tell you this, that the most expensive part of that, the liquefied gas, which will come out of the noble oil field, the 4 richest wells are all in the area in the grid of Cyprus. And it will start to do... Where the mistakes are being made, in my opinion, at the present time, is negotiating where the refinery will be, the holding block, because nobody will put a refinery in Egypt. They won't put it in Libya. They won't put it in the Lebanon. They won't put it in Tunisia. They'll put it where it's safe and where it's in Europe. And where it's in Europe is only one place, and that's Cyprus. And it needs to be there. And all the work on that was done by the Cypriot government. And they had a fantastic site near Limassol. And they've already got capacity there for all of this. And they've got the pipeline, which is half delivered there anyway. So there's all of that. But the American situation will be determined by oil and gas. The same as the Kuwait situation is now determined by oil and gas. And also, what they're getting into now is trying to determine Saudi Arabia policies because of oil and gas. And the family of oil and gas companies are already in there and controlling much of that. But don't dismiss Europe. This will be the largest supplier of liquefied gas for the next 50 to 70 years to Europe. And Europe is reliant at the present time on oil, either liquefied gas from Nigeria or from Russia. And we've seen the linkage with they've done with Gazprom and all the rest of it in there. It is becoming more and more and more important as we head towards the next 20, 30, 40 years. Now, I believe international policy will be determined Cyprus. I think one of the reasons we've got a little bit of movement at the present time is the reasons I've said with Kurdistan, with Turkey at the present time, with what's going on over there, but also the instability, but also what's happening. America didn't go to Cyprus for its holidays or anything else. It's got all the beaches it needs elsewhere in the world. It went to Cyprus because there's a reason for going there. Second largest shipping nation in the world, and the biggest tanker stop in the world. That's where it is. That's where they want it to be. And if it goes on, that's what they'll get. But I say, don't run Cyprus down. I think the future for Cyprus could be great. It just has to be managed right. And I have every confidence. There's some great business people in Cyprus. And I have every confidence that they'll get it right, providing the population keeps them up to it. And I think they will.
Just before Koray speaks, I think Tom was very modest about his own contribution to Cyprus, both as an MP and subsequently, in fact, more importantly, subsequently, he's continued to stand by our side. So thank you very much, Tom.
I'll just say to you again, some of you might be a bit younger now, or you know, the Tom Cox, you saw him on the platform and stuff like that. When I came into this place, he was the only one. Yeah. He was the only one that was around. And I tell you, I ended up coming because of Anniversary and economy into it. And Tom said, it'll take over your life, and he was right. But I tell you this, he was around when nobody else was. And the other one, perhaps it was around, was a Tory, Sid Chapman. He was around too. He was supported all the way down the line. We've got to remember these people, because without them, we wouldn't be here. All the work that was done by them and built on from there. And sometimes you say, oh, he's all right, he's grown, he's gone now, somebody else. You wouldn't be here if he hadn't done the work he did. That's the truth.
Invited to talk here.
Koray, do you want to say something?
I'm sorry,
Go there. Go there.
first of all, I apologize because my English is not very good.
Excellent.
And I'm not politician as well. I'm only panel beater. But I'm human. And I want to start one Cyprus music. I want to touch. This is first Turkish, and now have a Greek with me. And maybe some of them you have understood. Only 3 sentences I say from them. People must love his country. My father say like that. But my country divide in the center. Which part I love it? Anyway, this is from Neşe Yashin. Very good music. This is the situation of our country. Interest missing peoples. Interest everything. And you know, some of them say have a border. I never use border. Because border means have a two legal country. But in Cyprus, and I don't say milk is white. I don't say 1 + 1 is equal to. Everybody say this. It's not only me. I know I support. Thank you for your invitation. First of all, I forgot. And for your support for our flag. It's not personally for me and my wife. My wife Dora outside with his 2 girls because girls maybe claim madam. Anyway, I don't say never border, but some Turkish Cypriot. And I don't say for me I am Turkish, I'm Turkish Cypriot. I'm only Turkish speaking Cypriot. If we make DNA, maybe we are family, you know. We are a little. We are a little Italos. We are a little French. We have a little Greek. We have a little Armenian. We have a little Latinos. We have a little Turcos. We have a little Arabics. Maybe we are a little Persian. Somebody bezi Tavli. Tavli bezi Persian. And any country wants have a border in his country? I don't believe. Why we want border? We can say checkpoint. This is plan of imperialism. And is important thing. Dora have a ceasefire in the Cyprus. And there is not any clearance in the north side of Cyprus. Because in the European Court of Human Justice have a result and have a sign from Republic of Turkey as well. North part of Cyprus is under control, under territory, is equal under occupation and invasion area. This is real. We wait from Turkey. Please say where is the missing peoples. You know why the Varosi Eshifotia? This is, I saw the graders. They changed the grave place. Anyway, if we don't want any missing people, have a Turkish Cypriot missing people as well. We have a mistake before. If we eat something and later our stomach make good, the people knows brain doidion. I believe. If we make, for example, it's not example, reality. We want a common statute for missing peoples, and we apologize from each other. I believe, I said before, this is came from Mr. Kyriakos Matsis. He said this before. In the island, no problem any ethnicity of the people. If the all islanders, if the all local peoples and legal peoples believe I am Cypriot, this is the real peace and this is the real solution. And later, Dr. Ihsan Ali, he said as well, in Cyprus, the real solution and peace will come if the all Cypriots believe Cypriotism. In America, there is no American nationality. Ethnicity, nationality. But they give his people a kind of people I respect. I don't make any category, color, language, religion, sex, or anything else. And I don't want bizonal as well, because if I don't make category, why I make category bizonal? Where is my human rights that time? I am just opposite my ideology. And sorry, I'm very subject very close each other. And another thing, we forgot ceasefire. Ceasefire comes from, it goes 20 July 74. And we forgot something. I respect everybody to speak it. And I support. We forgot something. If, for example, if I give Panadol or headaches or paracetamol, you can use it now. If I give now, you can use it?
No.
Because you are not headaches. Why the imperialism over America? I mean America, Israel. There is no any nationality, but Israel control capitalism. I speak true. Sorry, I don't say sorry. I speak true. Yeah. We don't want any war, but capitalism make guns and sell and earn money. And later war, we pay in Cyprus. People pay in everywhere. If we are human, please. Of course, money, without money, no life. But money is not everything. Anyway, we forgot something. Ceasefire. 20 July, Turkey came to Cyprus. But reason of 15 July. Junta. Who made this? I don't say loud, Cosmos. I say the governance. Junta is not democratic. Who made this? CIA. And if you remember, James Callaghan, 74, foreign minister of the United Kingdom, or England, sorry if I make mistake. That time he said, now Cyprus is the prisoner of the Republic of Turkey. But later, Turkey is the prisoner of the Republic of Cyprus. And I personally, and if we are Cypriot, we are support our Republic of Cyprus. But I believe basic human rights. I don't believe international rules, because international rules, a system of capitalism, they make everything. In the first rules, you know what's the meaning of Apple rules? Very simple. somebody catch one apple. He didn't stole and gasha. One apple. And later, brought the rules, in the international rules, apple rules. Because I like one apple. You know, I don't have any money. I can take only one. And later I go penalty. I give money. This is the system of capitalism. And left second rule is the barley. Before there is no any enough money. There is no any job. People make something. Only make bread from literally from barley. And later second thesis is equal. And I believe our Cyprus problem will come from imperialism. Because if you remember, before 5-6 years, a month ago, have some papers from Kissinger, Foreign Minister of America, United States of America. You make I don't know in English, make something to Makarios because he's ill. Junta. And another thing, I read this document from Turkish language in Cyprus newspaper. Before 20-25 years ago, have a reportage from James Callahan. He said, first we go to Eugavida. We give a guarantee to them. Never Attila come Cyprus. And later, but before Turkey tried to come Cyprus 6 times. 2 times he started to go sea. Med America from satellite Oidora, Piso. When he made junta, CIA, Eugavida, later they go to Turkey, Hade, Dora, Si, Mesa Gibro, Jedora. You believe, all right, I said the ceasefire from 2074. This is legal. 2074 legal. Because 15 July issue junta. Turkey came. But after 20 July, this is he changed the way. And all guarantors have a mistake, but real function is the repair the Republic of Cyprus and they keep the land totality. Guarantors meaning this is. But all guarantors make something to us. This is reality. Cypriot goes to England, my brother or my father goes a lot of Egypt. Inegamu grandfather nickname number 1, you know, Yadi Ikseri, first soldier to Queen, and Eshimatalia. Number 1 is the very, very famous. And English mate, I believe Eoga, brother, first Eoga, very nice, I respect, because he make independent, freedom. But England changed some ways. And that time, TMT, they use us. Time is come. We are all together. I believe only Igibros and Istolaodis. I believe only Cyprus believes to his Cypriot or legal and when did Turkey come? They sent the peoples, maybe some of you, from north to south, from south to north. All this war crime. They change our culture. They change our culture. We use our flag. We know it is free, but the result of Famagusta Castillo, this is not Sefto Castillo. This is in law of European Court, in law. Because now we wait, they didn't go Supreme Court, we go against Turkey. But we need a support. We need a solicitor, we need a tickets, we need a hotels. If we are together, I don't problem with Turkish people or Kurdish people. Or Greek people. I'm the problem from government, system. They make this. And later the people fight each other. And where is the EU? Where is the UN? Turkey is very strong, you believe this? Or they give power to Turkey? Please think twice. Turkey is the big country. I believe UN and EU and America and Israel give a support to Turkey. You make this.
Okay.
Cyprus halkına aiti. Cyprus halkına aiti.
Of course. All country, for example, I don't say English. I say British. Because English ethnicity. But in England, for example, 80 million population, pure English, no. Mixed.
Çok mersi.
We're almost at time, so we have time for one last question.
I love speeches. They're fantastic. But they're all words for me, because what I'd like to see, what I'd like to hear from somebody is a tangible effort that was made to keep Cyprus as one country. We've got Syria, we've got troops from everywhere trying to save Syria. We had Iraq, we had Ukraine, and everybody rushed to do something about it. But I haven't seen any country trying to help the Cypriots stay as one. 41 years now, we haven't seen an effort to do that. Can you explain why?
I explained a little bit when I said it was about the way foreign policy has gone. I'll tell you what's terrible about it. Not only is Cyprus full members of the EU, the family, the European family, but our planes land there, we have bases there, our injured soldiers go there, they're operated, they're rehabilitated there. We have an expat population of about 50,000 there. Trade is high there. Everything is a pro between Britain and Cyprus. So us letting them down is even more disgraceful. We're on the one hand getting them to help us all the way through and do all these things, but on the other hand, they're just not doing anything that would cause a resolution of the conflict. And on the contrary to that, what is Turkey to them? There's only two things Turkey are. It's a matter of defence or trade. That's truth. The reason why we're like that, we trade with them, they trade with us, and they defend on our borders to Europe. And that's the reality. It's selfish international policy. What we should be doing is sticking with our family, looking after our family, and anything that goes with the whole of the family in the European area. But we don't do that. We actually do it on a much more basic, selfless basis. Now, I say to you this, it's going to take another international dimension to the politics where people say what's gone before isn't good enough. We want change, we want something different. And I think it's been enough. I think Robin Cook started the whole debate on that. And it stopped with his death, before his death. When he was taken away from foreign policy, our foreign policy changed. And I don't think it's ever gone back. And whilst we might be striving to get the 0.7% GDP into the equation for foreign aid, there's not much else left of what his strategy was, which is a different dynamic altogether, which is about freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, internationally and at home. And I think it's sad. We have to get back to that, because without it, it's not just Cyprus, it's resolution all over the place that will go against us.
This is rhetoric. What action are we doing about it?
Well, I can tell you that government departments spend a long time. They've got government desks on it. Ministers frequently speak on it, say quite a lot of things. They go to the European Council and they argue for it. In the European Council, I've got to say, they're very good. They're arguing the case for compensation, they're arguing the case for removal of troops, about the missing, all the rest, but they don't happen. You get the occasional compensation case like Louzides and all the rest of it through, but the rest of it doesn't apply. But they're doing their job, they're part of the equation. But let me put this to you here. As much as I support Cyprus, and I get involved in the Cyprus issue, and I argue the case for Cyprus, I'm not going to believe that I should ever be a part of making policy for Cyprus, because that's Cypriot. You make your policy, not me. I'll try and influence the way you do it, or help you in doing it, but it has to be your decisions. When I say to my colleagues sometimes, when they get it, what we've got to do is that, and that, I said, don't do that. That's their decision. It's not a British decision. The British decision has got us into all this trouble. It's got to be a Cypriot decision to do it. Like what's happening over oil and gas. I have my analysis on oil and gas. I know what they want to do, what they should be doing, all the rest of it. But the President does that with his cabinet, with his parliament, and all of it. That's the way it happens. And if I saw people interfering in the British system, I'd be equally angry about that. So we've got to argue for the kind of stature and stance that you're arguing about, doing things for Cyprus to try and help them in the process. But we can't interfere. We can't do that. It's not our role.
We need to be out of the room.
Just one quick comment. We met before and you raised this very fantastic issue of being a family. And I like that, because Cypriots are family. We value that. But the interesting thing is that when we talk about family and Cyprus, petrol comes into play and we share. When did anybody else share their goods with Cyprus? Or anybody when it comes to it?
Well, Cyprus won't share the goods, will sell it. That's what they'll do. That says a quite different thing now. Let me just tell you on the participation. I believe, for instance, that in the large-scale troop movement we've got in Cyprus, we've got air bases, we've got listening stations, we've got army bases. I think we should actually vacate or even temporarily vacate part of that to house a European force there, which would be not only a UN force, but actually be from Europe, from the family itself. And that would be a solid base. But I can't argue with that unless Cyprus argues with that, because they're very much in favour of the bases being there in the present form. But I will not raise that until such times as Cyprus says we want this in being. But it is one of the solutions that I might talk to people like the Ambassador or the High Commissioner about, because that's the way to help, to try and encourage along a particular direction, but not dictate. That's what happens in countries when they go wrong. And unfortunately, Britain's been involved in a lot of that and helped things go wrong in the past.
We are out of time. We need to be out of this room in 1 minute. So I'd like to just thank all the MPs that came along tonight. Teresa, Sir Roger, David Crosby, Joan and Tom Cox, and Alan, especially for staying and hearing these questions. Thank you all very much.
I'd like to say why when our Turkish friend and Meryl courageously gives that we don't want to divide Cyprus by itself, why the people don't want Faisal ridiculed and ostracised and never given a chance to speak. We do not want Faisal, we're one community. Our Turkish friends from Republic said it, the Republic said it, the Republic of Cyprus said it. We do not want a Faisal divide people. We are Cypriot people. We do not want one. The representatives in this country and in the Cyprus government constantly push by zonal, by communal.
on about her?
How do you react to, how do you, if I could ask, how do you react to Cypriots who do not want a bizonal, bicommunal federation?
I think it's right.
So,
I mean, I believe whatever Cypriot's right.
So I respect what you said and I appreciate it.
Listen, why don't you come in for lunch?
I'll have to.
Why not? I saw you sitting there, but bloody hell, why not?
You should come to see my work now.
Well, I will.
Anytime.
Have you